I'm Jack Marinelli. Welcome to my shop, and we've been running around together playing hot rods for quite a while now. The car in question right there is my 1929 Roadster that actually was built in the mid-50s in Eagle View, Missouri. I think I really need to blame Steve Dale for the car. Every year we'd go to the swap meet in Springfield just prior to the ham drags. So in August of '03, we're heading over there, and there's a whole group of us, and we're having lunch, and someone says, "Well, Jack, what are you going to look for?" And I said, "Well, I'm going to buy a 29 Roadster body and a Jenny 32 frame, and I'm going to pay $500 for them. I'm going to go home and build a highboy." So we got laughing about that, and so we get over there to the Springfield swap meet, and we're there all day. I mean, and you've seen the fairgrounds over there. We're all beat. We're just exhausted. So we get ready to leave, and pretty soon Steve says, "Well, let's go through the car corral." And I said, "Oh, Steve, man, I'm beat. We're all tired, been on our feet all day." Well, we walked down to the car corral, and there she sat. And a fellow by the name of Tom Burns out of Springfield had the car and had some flyers in it. He wasn't around. I just fell in love with her. So I take this flyer, I'm showing this to the guys, and said, "I've got to have this car. Got to have it." So they're all going, "Jack, you're not going to buy that car." So we get back to the hotel that evening, and we're sitting around there talking. I said, I'm just looking at this flyer. And I tell the guys, I said, "I've got to have the car." "Jack, you're not going to buy that car." I pick up the phone and call Tom. I said, "Tom, I'll buy your car." Done deal. So anyway, a couple weeks later, we meet halfway between here and Springfield. Gerald Keck and I and Ralph Henderson drive over there, and I bring her home, and we get her unloaded, and the first response out of my wife at that time was, "You paid how much for that?" And anyway, it's an interesting story. The car was built, like I said, in Eagle View, Missouri, back in the mid-50s. And Tom was telling me the story that he bought the car from the original builder's son, and the car had actually been featured on ESPN at some time as one of the most vintage hot rods left in the country. And, you know, okay, you buy that stuff. And well, a couple years after I owned the car, I did call this guy in Eagle View, Missouri, and talked to him at great lengths. And he said, "Oh yeah," he said, "I remember when my dad built that car, and it was on ESPN." He said that it's brush painted, and he said, "I can remember when Dad painted it with a paintbrush, and the motor's a 46. It's never been apart. And actually, the only thing I've done to the car since I've owned it, I've had to put tires on it. It was really interesting that it had dual white wall front tires on it when I bought it, and I never could figure out where you get dual white walls until one day I started looking at them closer, and they're Harley Davidson. And anyway, to say the least, I put new tires on it, and I've rebuilt the generator and starter, and that's basically all I've done in over 8 years. Like we were talking about earlier, I've driven it to Salina a couple times, and driven it to Dewey, Oklahoma at Stray Cats 500 show a couple times. Did have it in Austin, and yes, Jeff, I did trailer it to Austin. Yeah. But you know, basically, it's just a real fun driver. Drive it constantly in the summertime. It's just like a daily driver. Don't think anything about it, and just get in and go. Dirt roads are a lot of fun with it. It's a lot of fun to slide around corners in dirt. Yeah.
Any favorite memories you've got with taking it somewhere and somebody seeing it?
Yeah, there's some I can't tell you about, but
right.
No, we actually did. We had it in Austin, and our good friend Tim Payne out of Georgia, and he has a little 32 Roadster, and we had the two Roadsters in Austin together, and we absolutely had a ball chasing each other around Austin in the two Roadsters, and his is a very traditional car also. His father it was a drag racing car back in the 60s, and Tim built the car years ago, and we just had a ball run around Austin in them. And driving in the rain's a lot of fun. It's like I was saying earlier, Matt Mingus and I drove the car to Salina one year in literally pouring down rain. and it's so much fun with the rooster tails coming off the tires, and you don't get wet until you stop. But
Now, the ham drags this year, there was a car there with the same car club name in the back. Did you get to talk to those guys?
yes,
at all?
I did. That's an interesting story. Those low balls.
I've seen some
Yes,
of their cars.
and it's the
different
first
shapes.
time I've ever seen that. And so I was talking to those guys, and it's a very old club out of southern Missouri, southwest Missouri. And what really amazed me was the lettering was identical on my car as was on theirs. And the one fella says, "Where's the Roadster?" And I said, "Well, I didn't bring it." I said, "We drove our dailies over here because we were going to Springfield swap meet." And he was seriously disappointed. He said, "I told the guy that owned the car, not Tom Burns, but the son of the original builder, that he just knew you'd have the car over here and we'd get pictures of it for him." And so, learned my lesson. You know, it will be at the ham drags this year. But yeah, it's, like I said, it's just a lot of fun. It's very reliable. It doesn't use any oil. It leaks oil, and it rattles and squeaks and bangs and pops out of second gear and does all those things that real traditional hot rods ought to be doing. So, let's go for a ride.
My Ruby juking on the outskirts of town. She pulled her high heels off and pulled her stockings down. She put a quarter in the jukebox, give a little beat, and everybody started Ruby, rock and roll. When Ruby starts rocking, boy, satisfies my soul. Now Ruby started rocking about 1 o'clock. And when she started rocking, she just couldn't stop. She rocked on the tables and rolled on the floor with all the cats yelling, "Ruby, rock some more." She's my rock and roll Ruby. Rock and roll Ruby. Rock and roll. When Ruby starts rocking, boy, satisfies my soul. Rock, cat, rock! About 4, I thought she would stop. She looked at me, then she looked at the clock. She said, "Wait a minute, Daddy, now don't get sore. All I want to do is rock a little bit more." She's my rock and roll Ruby. Rock and roll Ruby. Rock